All right, Jeff Carroll here, Sci-Fi Express Lane. Jeff Carroll, writer, filmmaker, all that stuff, you name it. Haven't done a video in a while, and I think I let my car going in the shop take me away from doing videos. It wasn't in the shop for like a month, so it was a lot more than just the shop. But anyway, nothing to break me out of hiatus better than a movie like Sinners. And let me just talk about Sinners. I agree with everybody. In fact, I called it early, but I knew it was going to be good. I just didn't know how good and great it was going to be. I think Sinners, and I'll try to explain that because it's going to be like all reaction to Sinners. It's going to be a little bit of speculation, and there's going to be some spoilers because this is like a week and whatever after, so there's going to be some spoilers in here. But anyway, I think Sinners is going to be as impactful or more impactful than Get Out. All right? And Get Out was a very impactful movie like Jordan Peele. I don't think it's going to be as impactful as Black Panther, but that's just because like Black Panther had more ground to cover. Black Panther was dealing with science fiction and, you know, on a mega level. And I just think that Black Panther turned people on to science fiction that were not really giving it a shot. Whereas with Sinners and Get Out, we have had black horrors, you know, before, right? Get Out was just amazing, and it showed us that black horror can cross over to the white audience more, but we have had black horror. I don't know any black science fiction picture on a theatrical level before Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? I'm really hard pressed. You know, there have been some science fiction stories with black people in it, yeah, no doubt. But for something like the purple flower zone that they go to, I forgot what that's called, ancestor realm, something that's, you know, present in a lot of black written stories, whether it's science fiction, paranormal, or even horror. Nah, I've never seen that before. So Black Panther did things that I hadn't seen before, or I don't think have been seen before. Get Out just broadened the audience, showed us that the black horror audience was big, and it didn't have to be limited to just 13% of America. It could be, you know, just as big as, you know, an Asian horror movie, you know, something coming from Korea, something, you know, not just the white pictures out of Hollywood, but something as big as, you know, the ones coming out of Korea, you know. So it's like saying The Last Dragon could be as big as Bunk or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yes, it can. A black martial arts picture can be just as big as an Asian martial arts. Well, let's not say Chinese, because they got the benchmark on it. But shoot, as big as The Transporter, you know, a European martial arts picture compared to that. Here we go. So when we're talking about market exposures and broadening, yeah, black horror and black science fiction, black stories in general have always been limited. Who's going to see this? You know, not just in film. You know, you put a black person on the cover. Who's going to read this? Is it just for black people? No, it's idiot. We've been reading white stories for everybody for the longest. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, there's niche audience stuff. There's niche audience white stuff. You know, that's there, but no, just because it's black doesn't mean it's for black people only. That's ridiculous. And hopefully Sinners is breaking that mold, or keeping that mold broken like Get Out did, you know, because, you know, we can count the pictures that have been able to do that. And it's not always and only because they're good, because there's a lot of good black pictures that, you know, for some reason they don't catch the fire. Now, Ryan Coogler did it with Sinners. It was amazing in the fact that he just went hard on it. He was like, yo, if I'm losing, I'm going down with appropriate, powerful indigenous Americans to start off. Then I'm going to show, weak white people and racist white people. That was it. The first group of white people was really weak white people, and that's how they ended up, or that's how the vampires in general took root. Then they showed Asian people living amongst, and for some reason we have known Asian people have been in America since the early days of America, building the train tracks, pioneering the West, but really never seen them. Like in cowboy movies, you don't really see them having a foothold. You see, I don't know, maybe you see one Asian person, but you don't really see them have a store. They had to do something to make money. So, whether it is even The Harder They Fall, or what was it, the other one that I like, Preacher, Buck and the Preacher. There's opportunities to have shown Asian, but Ryan Coogler did it. He put Asians right in there with the black people in not necessarily the West, but the South, right? Because Mississippi isn't the West, Mississippi is the South. Then another thing Ryan Coogler brought in there, he brought in there the currency. He showed, plantation money. I never heard of that. So, this is amazing. Now, things that, I'll even say with the musical element, and people love the musical element, I think that scene was powerful, probably my most powerful scene, or second, to Delroy Lindo's story about his friend getting lynched. But the musical element with the griots, and I think he pronounced it wrong. Somebody was pointing out that they pronounced it wrong. But the connection with all of the musics I felt was good. However, I'm like, as I saying that we all sinners, at some point, maybe the name might come in to question, because the name sort of frames it. And I ain't even hating on it. I'm saying I don't understand it. So maybe I need to find out, or maybe a second viewing or somebody online will talk about it. So that was powerful. I like the root element of it. One of the things about vampire lore is all of these rules, right? I have a friend, Marcus, who, talked about, certain things he just didn't get into because he was raised in the South, and his orientation to the spiritual realm wasn't what Westerners viewed it as. And that's true. I try to do that with my fingernail story, even my story, it happened on Negro Mountain. I tell people all the time, ghosts aren't universally bad in every culture. And that's also to say that the spiritual world isn't as alien and as isolating as it is in the Western world to everybody. We talk about how Black Panther took a flower to go to the purgatory, or not purgatory, go to the spirit world. It wasn't really even purgatory. So there's another expression of the post-life world. And I think there is room for that, right? We saw a little bit of Lovecraft Country deal with that. And I don't know if Lovecraft Country is a good example, but sometimes white writers can study Black spirituality and offer something different than what Western spirituality offers, even though they don't get Black spirituality totally correct. Think of the comic book Bitter Root. Bitter Root is dealing with spirituality, yes, and demon energy, different than the Western world, and that's cool. So when you see how it's done in Sinners, it almost goes into orishas and deities. You know how in voodoo and Santeria, they're more like Yoruba than they are Christianity, where in Christianity you have the devil, you have angels, you have Jesus and saints, right? But in Santeria, Yoruba, and other African spiritualities, voodoo, you have deities that are good and bad, right? Or just powerful. And that power can be used, they can use that power for good and bad, or to do things that are helpful and hurtful. That's the best way to use it. In my movie, The Black Nun isn't an angel. She isn't a demon. She isn't the devil incarnated. She is a deity. She's a deity that can be good or bad, has power. So when we start talking about African spirituality, yeah, it is different than Western spirituality. Western spirituality, you got clear cut. The devil is bad no matter what you say to him. He just represents badness. No matter what God does, God can look the other way while there's going slavery, look the other way while there's going on the Holocaust, but God is still good. You understand? So Christianity is different than African spirituality. And black writers do that. And Ryan did a good job of that, right? That makes me think of what Michaela did in the, it's not The Nun. There was another one where, kind of trying to remember, The Exorcist, right? Where it was two girls, a black girl and a white girl, that got caught up being possessed. And in the movie, Michaela is a black writer from Malignant and Megan. She wrote it where there was more than just Christianity used to help these girls rid themselves of what was possessing them. And she wrote into that story religious elements, and that's beautiful. But black writers bring that because we're not all spiritually Christians. We may be religiously Christians because religion was thrown on us, but we still have another spiritual element, you know, like they did with voodoo, right? So anyway, this movie offers that. And I'm probably gonna have to do a part 2 because I want to do my prediction, but let me get to this last point. When we talk about spirituality, right? Well, heck, then we almost have to reimagine vampires, because vampires are not spiritual. They're not in a spiritual universe. They're in a religious universe. And it's not fully a complete universe, but they mix garlic, which is used for circulation and help you with colds. That's a real medicinal herb, right? So if you was to use that in the time of King James, they would call you a witch and burn you at the stake, right? They would say, take this herb to help you with your circulation. Nope, you're a witch. So they got that in their lore. Then they got the cross. I don't even think Jesus would be ashamed and run away from a cross because he was killed on a cross. What? That's like holding up an electric chair symbol to somebody. I don't know what the cross does to vampires. Yes, it symbolizes the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, I get that. You know, but the Bible is the Word of God. So does that have powers too? And there's a whole lot of other symbols in Christianity besides for that. But they want to make the vampire seem evil, so it is everything that's bad. It is the devil. It is all of that. So Michael B. Jordan and the people in there, they went and got garlic. They went and got a wooden stake. You know, like wood is grounding, right? That's why trees get hit by lightning, because there's a grounding element from the wood to the earth, okay? That's different than a person, because a person is a living thing. I don't know. I forgot when I was doing my book, Thug Angel. I researched all this, so I don't know if he got silver in there. Don't remember if silver was brought in there, but silver is a metal that is easy to clean germs off of because it's very dense and it's easy to stay germ free. So that's why we have silverware. And because of silver being something like that, it's in the werewolf lore and it's in some vampire lore. And then the last thing is this invitation into the place, which is non-spiritual, but there is a devil element to it. Let the devil in. There's I think it's in the Bible, but I'm not sure. But I know there's old sayings that don't be open, don't invite in evil. People are talking about this movie, The Woman in the Yard, and all of that is inviting in evil. So that's something that's around outside of the vampire lore, but it's cool because Ryan Coogler brought that into Sinners, right? So it's interesting. We'll look at the lore. And I'll just say this. My last little thing before I go, you like, subscribe, share, and comment. But my last little thing is I can't wait for this little Asian girl to get taken in by the indigenous Americans and trained as a vampire hunter. That is my spin-off series for television or whatever. It can be a movie, it can be a comic book. I would love to write it. I don't think it's the direction that they're going to go for a sequel, but maybe she'll even be a character in whatever sequel they're doing. But anyway, dang, I went 17 minutes. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. Jeff Carroll out. Sci-Fi Express Lane officially black. All right, peace.